Commission is called to order. I'd like to say welcome to Jessica Vaughan. We'll be talking a little bit later in the meeting. In the meantime, we'll see if we can get approval of minutes from December 15th. That's okay. Moved by Lois and seconded by Jessica Clare. Okay. Seeing no further hands raised for corrections, the minutes are approved. Before we get any further into our meeting, I'd like to invite Stefan for his usual review of virtual meeting conduct.
All right. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the commission, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. In this meeting, panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Panelists also have the ability to add pronouns after their names if they choose. Please do not alter the current naming convention. Simply add text after your name. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked the question. The chair will do their best to call on commission members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, I don't know, I think we have one. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You'll remain muted until called upon. Staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair Goodhart, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Stefan. I didn't see any registrations for item number 1, general public comment. So we can move right on to see if there's any disclosures or recusals. Nope. Okay, then it's time for the agenda overview. Will that be Jessica or Kevin?
I think I've got one more in me, Chair.
Okay.
So I will do the overview tonight of our relatively short agenda. Mm-hmm. The first discussion item is a signage item. It's a signage exception. It is a public hearing. There's a staff report that's been attached. Planning and zoning staff do not have any concerns and do recommend that this item be approved on the consent agenda. Our second item is an item that the Urban Design Commission will be an advisory body on, and this is the Greater Easttown Area Plan. My colleague, Bill Fruling from the Planning Division, will be doing an overview. And again, this item was before the Urban Design Commission for an informational presentation last fall. Again, it's before you tonight as part of your formal recommendation as that plan is now going through its formal approval process. Those are the two items that we have on tonight's agenda. During the Secretary's report at the end of the agenda, we'll introduce the new Urban Design Commission Secretary. So that's what I have for tonight's overview.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Are there any, is there a motion for the consent agenda for either or both items? Jessica, is that for number 2? 2, okay. Is there a second on that motion? Lois, okay. Any discussion on the motion for approval on the consent agenda as recommended by staff? Seeing no hands raised, then by unanimous consent, item number 2 is approved. And that brings us then to Bill on the Greater Easttown Plan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Seems like I was just here. Actually, I was on November 17th. And so as Kevin mentioned, November 17th was an informational presentation on the draft Greater Easttown Area Plan, and I know the commission had some discussion at that time. And mostly items I would consider as kind of clarifying was more the nature of the discussion. I didn't hear any recommendations for any big changes. So nothing with the draft plan has really changed since you last saw it, just more tightening it up and refining the document itself to get it ready to be introduced. But if you would like, I have like a 10 slide PowerPoint that I can go over with you just to kind of refresh you on a couple items about that, including the specific recommendation for Urban Design District number 5. So if you would like me to do that, I would be happy.
I see some heads nodding. So if it's a distilled presentation, by all means, if you've prepared it, that would be great.
I tried to make it very distilled.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody seeing this? Perfect.
Yep.
So just as a refresher, again, this is the planning area. It's generally bounded by Interstate 9094. I think 39 is in there as well on the east. East Washington Avenue on the north, Mendota Street on the west, map west, not actual west, and generally the railroad tracks south of the Starkweather Creek Greenway on the south. And this is a map that I showed last time, but I think it's really helpful to remind us all of the scale of this area and the development potential for the future. So this is the planning area overlaid on the core of the downtown. And if you can just think about the nature of this area, the way that it exists now, it's really there's really a lot of potential for future development and new street connections, a wide variety of uses, and just to allow the greater Easttown area to evolve into a more dense urban type of development. Not as dense as the core of the downtown, but there are a lot of opportunities between how it exists today and what it could be in the future. And that's really the whole purpose of this plan, is to provide the framework for this area to evolve into its next iteration over decades. So this is the current future land use plan from the comprehensive plan for this area. And you'll note that the purple area is regional mixed use. So that's where the mall itself is and a lot of the bigger box kind of stores. The red is just general commercial area. And in this whole area, there is no residential development. And what we're trying to do is provide a roadmap for this to develop into a multi-use complete area with residential uses, commercial and office uses, parks and open spaces, and the like. And so one of the key recommendations of the comprehensive plan was to prepare plans like the Greater Easttown Area Plan for both Westtown and Easttown, because I think we really see these as areas that could see significant change in the coming years. The Common Council adopted the Westtown Plan. Actually, the name of that plan was the Odana Area Plan back in September. And this is just following behind that one a bit. So this is the, trying to move some things out of the way here. This is the proposed future land use map and street network for this area. So you can see all the streets that are shown, the lines, I guess, that are shown in gray or gray dashes are proposed future streets. So the streets that are there today are shown in white. So you can see that we're really trying to break down these very large chunks of land. They're not even parcels. They're just big areas of land to enhance connectivity, but also to provide a more developable block pattern. As we talked about last time, some of these blocks can be broken down even further. Particularly in the more residential areas, it might be desirable to have a little finer grained block pattern. But we are trying to identify those important street connections that would go on here. And we also wanted it to be provide a framework that is flexible, that can accommodate a variety of different types of development patterns. But just to kind of summarize the changes, the regional mixed use is, again, kind of the core mall area. We have community mixed use as the lighter purple. So you see that kind of between East Springs Drive and Zion Road. You see some more of that along East Washington Avenue. And then there's some of it here along Lean Road. And community mixed use really differs from the regional mixed use in it's a little finer grain. It's meant to serve like a little smaller area, but it also still provides for a wide range of uses, including residential and commercial uses. The medium residential is in the brown that you can see just kind of west of the existing mall and south. There's some also south of East Springs Drive in this area. And then we included an area of low to medium residential that's shown in yellow to encourage just a smaller scale of housing. Again, what we're trying to do with this plan is create a series of places and a variety of housing types, and we don't want it to be too dominated by one type of use, or like commercial, big box commercial area, or office, or large apartment buildings. That we want to try to provide a mix of all these different types of uses that will be attractive to a wide range of users. One of the things we wanted to note here is the blue dots along East Washington Avenue are proposed BRT stations. So when bus rapid transit comes out this way, we tried to concentrate higher densities and more intense uses closer to the BRT stations. And this is also reflected in this proposed maximum building height map, where you can see that the darker colors are the taller buildings. The numbers in those are the proposed maximum number of stories. I know we talked about this last time as well. And then there's a specific recommendation in the plan to revise Urban Design District number 5 to reflect and implement the design recommendations in this plan, including those found in the Design Elements Appendix. I'll talk about that in a second. And to extend the boundaries of UDD 5 to the interstate, and also consider expanding the boundary south of East Washington Avenue to include some of the key sites. The zoning code also includes provisions for transit-oriented development overlay districts. And that's something that we are going to be taking a look at around BRT stops. So there might be some interplay between the urban design district requirements and the TOD requirements. We have not established any TOD overlays at this point, but that's something that we're working on. And the recommendation in this plan, in this section of the plan, really is to consider utilizing the TOD development as necessary to implement some of the land use design and transportation goals if they are not adequately addressed in the Urban Design District 5 requirements. And at this point, we don't know what exactly that would be, but we want to make sure that we keep open the idea of using the tools that are available to us to fully implement the plan. So these are two specific recommendations in the plan related to the UDC. So here's the current Urban Design District number 5 boundary. And I'm not entirely sure the history of why it's drawn this way. It could be because of some past covenants for some properties in that area. But regardless, we are proposing to extend that district all the way to the interstate, exact boundaries to be determined. But there may also be some key sites, south of East Washington Avenue that may not exactly have frontage on East Washington Avenue, but might be determined when we study this to be key sites that we want to make sure that that the Urban Design Commission gets an opportunity to review development that would occur there, and that development would occur consistent with the urban design guidelines. So I mentioned the design elements appendix. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this. Like we talked about last time, it's really broken into three topics or headings. One is building height, setbacks, and stepbacks. Another is building materials and articulation. And the third is site layout and building orientation. It really is urban design 101 as far as the language in the appendix. And the purpose of that was really to make sure that these important design considerations do not get lost when revising the standards in UDD 5. The exact wording of those is a process that will also be coming up. But it's worth noting that the recommendations regarding Urban Design District 5 and the TOD overlay are both identified in the plan's implementation matrix as short-term implementation steps. And that means that these would get started in the next 1 to 3 years. So we feel those are pretty important recommendations. So the timeline, this draft plan was introduced to the Common Council January 4th. This week and next week, we're visiting some of the boards and commissions, including UDC this evening. So recommendations made by these boards and commissions will be advisory to the Plan Commission, who will consider this plan on February 7th. And the expectation is the Common Council will consider adopting this plan on February 7th. So I don't know if there are any questions, comments.
I have one question, Bill. Adoption of this plan does not automatically mean that there is rezoning of these districts, right?
It does not, but there's a recommendation in the plan. There's a map in the plan that
I saw that it recommends which districts change to which other districts. Yeah.
Yes, and that's on page 20, and there's a recommendation on page 18 that is to proactively rezone these properties consistent with that map. But the adoption of this plan itself does not do that. There's a separate process that needs to be gone through, just like if a private entity were to propose a rezoning, only the city is the initiator of this rezoning.
Okay, so I believe Urban Design Commission reviews rezoning applications. No, just the plan commission.
The plan commission and ultimately the council.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. But would it be your intention to have UDD number 5 revised concurrently with the rezoning or prior to the rezonings?
That would come after the rezonings.
Okay.
As we can work it into our work plan in the next 1 to 3 years, but it's likely the proactive zonings will occur a little sooner than that.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Bill? Okay. Russell?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Bill, for the presentation. Couple of questions, and I apologize. I don't know how much this really is in the UDC's realm, but it was just a thought I had. Any thoughts about dedicated park and ride infrastructure for folks who want to come in and get into downtown Madison but use the BRT? It's not necessarily specifically reflected, but I would imagine some of those commercial zones might be purpose for that. I'm just curious if that specifically has been thought about.
I don't know that has been specifically talked about in the context of this plan. That's an idea that's been around for a number of years, even before the BRT discussion. But that hasn't, I don't think, specifically come up in this discussion. The Transportation and Planning and Policy Board considered this plan. When was it? Was it Monday maybe? Or maybe it was last week. And that was not one of the things that they raised. So yeah, I don't know that this plan precludes that, but it's not one of the specific recommendations that's in the draft.
Okay. I think we probably care because I don't think many of us would want to see a massive parking lot as sort of symbolic of our city, urban design as, folks enter this kind of key area. So perhaps if it's done thoughtfully and
I think it's, there's enough in this plan that if there was some type of park and ride facility, it would be in some sort of structure. There wouldn't be a big, sure. That's one of the goals of this plan is to get rid of large surface parking lots.
Sure. Great. Thank you. Another question that we didn't talk about directly last time, and I didn't see it in what was sent over. Any thoughts about key sustainability ideas that are pertinent to this particular area, and if not, I might make some suggestions, but I just wanted to start with any thoughts that might have come forth already.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at the Green and Resilient chapter of the plan. That's really where a lot of the obvious sustainability kind of recommendations are. But the approach that we take, or the way that we view these like mini comprehensive plans for these areas, are sustainability is one of the core values of this. And so I think years ago when we used to do plans, we would say, "Oh, this is a recommendation that's focused on sustainability." But because that's part of our approach to plans now, when we have like everything from the land use patterns to the transportation networks to the building heights, all of that is kind of looked at with an eye towards making a more sustainable place in the long run. But there are recommendations, particularly on page 39 of the plan, that talk about all kinds of energy, efficient buildings and types of plantings and stormwater management and renewable energy and kind of a greatest hits list there on that page.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. No other questions at this time.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Jessica.
Hi, thanks for presenting this. I'm looking at the school districts, and that's a good portion of the proposed residential area would be in the Sun Prairie School District. And I'm curious if there's been conversation about that already, and also would a school come into this area, do you think? And if not, I'm curious how families would get to schools in Sun Prairie.
That's an excellent question. And we have had discussions with the Madison School District and the Sun Prairie School District. And I was not directly involved in those. So I don't know if the discussions with Sun Prairie was through MMSD, but yes, so basically that whole area east of Zia Road is in the Sun Prairie School District and a long ways from the schools. Sun Prairie has no interest in putting a new school in this area, probably because it's so far removed. And so I think kind of where it was left is that the school districts will continue to talk as they always do, as Madison does with its surrounding school districts. But right now there's no plans to change that school district boundary or build a school in this area.
But your new zoning map would permit a school in the one of the areas that you're showing. It's a huge area.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Shane?
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Bill. I'm wondering if, since our last conversation, if you have anything to follow up or any additional thoughts on the building height map, the view corridors to the Capitol that we talked about a little bit, how you can see the Capitol from 1994 through most of this stretch, and if there were any additional kind of considerations of how that relates to the, I believe it was like the 8 stories that could potentially line the interstate.
Yeah, we did talk about that some more as a team after the comments that you guys provided. And I think, going back to the comprehensive plan for guidance on that again, really kind of reinforce the focus of view corridors on streets that are like generally aligned with the Capitol and from public places like parks, but not kind of so when you're like for the streets, those streets that as you're driving towards the Capitol, that kind of presents itself to you, that view, but not when you're, driving down the interstate at 70 or 90 miles an hour, and you kind of have to look to the side to see that. And that just wasn't very consistent with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan for those, just really trying to focus on those premier view corridors and those big opportunities, and not every place you could see the Capitol from. So yeah, we did talk about that after your last meeting, but that recommendation was not changed.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead, Russell.
Realize I could unmute myself. Dangerous. Question for Kevin. is this an opportunity at all to talk about redefining UDD5? Is that outside of the scope of this meeting? Obviously, the plan is recommending to extend it, but I'm just wondering the character of UDD5 or the aspects of UDD5 that's on the table or appropriate.
No, I would defer to Bill about the details about expanding in kind of the guidelines. But the update of UDD5 itself will be a separate effort, and UDC will be a lead agency leading that. It's been several months since we've talked about that, but and we'll be revisiting kind of a schedule to look at UDD5 and the other urban design districts, and over the coming year and in coming months. I think originally when staff was looking at this, the original intent was, first just looking at the standards. If there is kind of a recommendation as part of that process to physically expand the geography of UDD5, it actually only touches essentially the frontage of East Washington Avenue up to Zaire Road. So it doesn't run, nearly, deep into the site. So I'll look to Bill in terms of kind of the guidance on, kind of expanding the physical boundaries of that. But I think that would certainly be, anything related to UDD5 would be kind of a separate effort. And this would be setting the table for it. I don't think it would necessarily, I think the boundaries would, be general. It wouldn't preclude kind of looking at that and potentially looking at, a wider boundary. But Bill, if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on kind of the boundary side of it from the plan.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kevin. And, when we established Urban Design District 7 on South Park Street, even though the primary properties of concern within the boundary are those that have frontage on South Park Street, there are some areas that had some big development potential, and the number of lots might be aggregated for a larger parcel, like kind of the triangle formed by Park Street, Fish Hatchery Road, and Winger Creek. So I think, Urban Design District 7 nudged into that triangle. As far as the boundaries, and it was not just solely that thin veneer of properties that had actual frontage on Park Street. So, we're not looking for a big land grab here, but just want to think strategically about how things may develop in the future when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Okay, and just to follow up on that, you mentioned that a rezoning along East Washington and in this whole area would go to the Plan Commission and the Common Council. But would urban design have input on, say, changes of permitted heights before the changes to the UDD number 5 would be presented to us? Because it sounds like you could almost be rezoning it and doing a revised height map, and then we just have to kind of accept it.
Well, the UDC would play a key role in revising the urban design districts. And if this is speculation on my part at this point, because it's pretty early, since we haven't even started that process. But if we determined when we started working on that the best way to implement the proposed maximum building heights map was to specify those building heights and for those parcels within the boundary of the urban design district, that's something you guys would have an opportunity to weigh in on, definitely.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting at, is hoping that the height map wouldn't be somehow amended or baked into the zoning district and sort of go by the UDC review process. Okay.
Oh.
I would just add, sorry, Chair. Just a quick clarification. As far as unlike the downtown districts, which there is actually a height map that's referenced for projects where there's a parcel by parcel map, zoning districts in this part of the city outside of the downtown do have an underlying height. Typically, they're there's a minimum height. I'm sorry, there's a maximum height that's allowed by right, and then additional height is a discretionary approval in most of the districts, it's a conditional use. So it doesn't have the zoning, but just changing the zoning is maybe not as specific as kind of the downtown plan or the downtown height map, just as a clarification.
Yeah, clarification. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep. So through our changes to the district, we could grant more specific height permission. Okay.
The height, well, yes, height would be the zoning would either the existing zoning, or if new zoning was approved on the property, that would carry with it the height regulations. And then, additional height would be a case-by-case evaluation, which certain projects would have a UDC recommendation that would come to UDC, or others could be referred to UDC as part of the conditional use if that's also required.
Okay.
Would it be okay if I did a quick follow-up on Russell's question about park and ride lots?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Bill Connors with Smart Growth Greater Madison must be listening in, because he sent an email to me. But Bill pointed out, was something I should have noted, that the BRT route is going to extend past Easttown towards some Prairie and the American Center, and there are park and ride lots in those areas as well. So just wanted to get that in there. And Bill, if you're still listening, thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense, that try to collect the people before they have to drive too far into town. Okay. Any other questions? If there are no more, Russell, go ahead.
I was going to make an attempt at a motion.
Please do.
I'd make the motion for the UDC to recommend implementation of this plan. I would suggest as part of the plan that UDD 5 be extended to the interstate for those properties fronting East Washington. And also UDD 5 wrap south for the identified buildings that are 8 stories or more. That's my motion. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second on the motion? Second on the motion? Jessica. Okay. So we have the motion second. Any discussion on the motion? I get the only thing I'd like to clarify is I'm not sure we want to specifically change. I don't think we can specifically change any boundaries or any regulations in UDD number 5, but the motion would be a recommendation, for future consideration. Okay. Shane.
Yeah, that was my question pretty much too, Cliff, just to sort of clarify. I think we could probably debate the boundaries of UDD 5 further, but I don't know that we want to or need to tonight.
I don't think we can. I think it would have to be publicly noticed before we were able to make that change. But, certainly the motion signals sort of an intent to the Plan Commission and our acceptance of the notion that the district would be either expanded and certainly changed to come in more compliance with this new plan. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing no further hands or no other hands raised, then we have the recommendation to approve the plan to the Plan Commission, and then we certainly look forward to the inevitable follow-ups on this. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you. So do we. And, I think we all believe that this is really important work in this area because, it's inevitable. This will be changing, and we don't get that many opportunities to really shape the future of an area this large in our city. So kind of a once in a generation or more kind of thing. So thank you for your input in the discussion.
You're welcome. Okay, well, that was by my agenda here, that was our last agenda item before we do the secretary's report and business by members.
So I think, Chair, if it's okay, I'll jump into the secretary's report. I'll just quickly note, Julie had sent an email out last week, and statement of interest forms, they were due last week. So if anybody hasn't filled one out, please do so, and actually contact Julie just in case there's anything, if there's still any outstanding, just so we know. So that's the first item. The other item that I have on the secretary's report is I'm pleased to introduce our new full-time Urban Design Commission secretary, Jessica Vaughan. Some of you may recall Jessica. She was with the Planning Division a few years ago in a different role. But she did help Al Martin out in terms of doing some staffing for UDC back a few years ago. So it's been, I want to thank you. I've really enjoyed kind of being your acting secretary the last several months. But I'm also very, very pleased to turn it over to Jess, both in terms of being your main UDC contact and also just turn it over to her this evening just to say hello to the commission.
Yes, hello and greetings. I see a few familiar faces and a few new ones as well. I think Kevin's looking forward to a couple of Wednesday evenings free. So we'll see how the transition goes. But ultimately I'm thrilled and just excited to be back at the city and working with just a wonderful group that is very talented, full of planning and design professionals. I'll ask that you bear with Kevin and I as we work through this initial transition period, though we're going to try to make it as painless as possible. But ultimately, I'm excited to roll up some sleeves and dive right in. I know Kevin had mentioned to me the work plan and started thinking about through some of those things. And Bill's presentation fit right into that with looking at urban design districts and thinking when we're going to kind of kick that project back off and get it going. So I'm excited and can't wait to get started.
Thank you very much. And we're happy to have you back in the city and, as our secretary here. And we look forward to getting to know you, hopefully even without a mask at some point.
Yeah, hopefully next time I'm going to see how at home works. I will say we'll have to work something out with Jessica because every time I hear her name, I think I'm being put on the hot seat. So
we have two Jessicas and two Christians. So we'll have to. Well, maybe we can have a motion in terms of future membership to
limit that.
Help take care of that. And so this isn't goodbye right away, Kevin. It'll be you're just slowly going to fade away.
Yes, no, and not goodbye at all. Actually, as far as the transition, I'll probably be, Jess will certainly, take a more prominent role in meetings, but a lot of meetings I will still be here, and kind of, helping out as needed and kind of reviewing projects. So I will certainly not go away, and I look forward to kind of, working with you, for the foreseeable future. So, not goodbye. Just I'll be a little bit less on camera, I suppose, at times, which is probably better for everyone.
We certainly appreciate that, and I know you served a really essential backup role for Janine during her time, and so we're happy that you'll be a resource as well as Julie and even Stefan as long as we're doing these remote. So we've got a really good team helping the commission out. Thank you very much. Is there any open it up for any questions or any thing you'd like to say to Jessica while before we adjourn? Nobody? Everybody's just looking forward to our early dismissal.
Welcome. Hi, Jessica.
Craig, you have your hand up?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that Jessica knew that Rafiq likes really long agendas that run till like 1 a.m. Just to make sure. Yeah.
I'll see what I can do for the 26th. I wouldn't want to disappoint on my first meeting.
At least 18 items, right, Rafiq?
When I saw the 2 items, I thought it was a joke.
Oh, so you were the guy doing somersaults down East Washington the other day, I saw. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions or welcome? Jessica, Claire.
Yeah, I vote that we call the other Jessica Jessinator.
I think I would want her input on that.
I don't know. It's better than I had worked at a law firm and I was the second Jessica. So I was Ika. She was Jess and I was Ika.
Oh, well, that's
So
wrong.
Jessinator is better than Ika.
When it's just you, do you have a preference in terms of, is it typically Jessica or Jessie, or how do you prefer being addressed?
Typically Jess is how
Okay.
I usually go.
All right.
Usually if it's Jessica, I'm in trouble, which is why I'm so nervous every time you say Jessica. I'm like, oh no.
Okay. So you'll be Jess and Jessica Claire will be Jessica.
Cliff, you may refer to me as Jessica.
Thank you. Okay. Shane and then Christian.
Sorry, just real quick. Welcome, Jessica. Ika.
Thank you.
But I also want the secretary to make note that I did roll in a hair late at, I think, 4:33, just so that is reflected in the record.
Thank you. And Christian, go ahead.
Welcome, Jessica. And I just wanted to point out that if there's confusion as to the 2 Christians that are on the commission, I am the one not wearing a University of Michigan baseball cap. So,
okay. We'll if there's any confusion, we'll just call him Your Honor. Rafiq.
Yeah, I just wanted to let Julie know that I literally just submitted my statement. I'm super late with that, but it's done.
Thank you.
Better late than never. Thank you. Everybody else, please double check that you did that. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again. Look forward to our next time together in 2 weeks. And then without any further discussion, by unanimous consent, we're adjourned at 5:18. Bye. Good night.
Bye.